Miles Russell deleted a tweet last night at 2:47 a.m. Most people didn't catch it. But screenshots live forever, and the golf world saw it before it disappeared. It was a quote retweet of a highlight reel showing Charlie Woods draining putts at a junior invitational. Miles's comment, consistency over highlights. 3 words, then gone. But those 3 words told you everything you need to know about what's happening inside Miles Russell's head right now. Because here's the thing, Miles built his entire identity on being the guy who doesn't need a famous name. The grinder, the self-made kid who earns every opportunity through results, not reputation. And for 2 years, that narrative worked. He turned pro at 16. He won mini-tour events. He outworked everyone in his age group and forced the golf world to pay attention. But something shifted in the last 3 months, and Miles knows it. Everyone knows it. The one thing he was afraid of, the thing he spent his entire career trying to outrun, is starting to happen. Charlie Woods is catching up, not just in talent, in results. In the one currency that actually matters in professional golf. And you can see the fear creeping in. But before I break down what's actually happening, you need to understand where this fear started. Miles Russell's biggest advantage has always been time. He went pro early. Started competing against grown men while Charlie was still playing high school events. Built a resume that looked tour-ready before most kids his age had a college commitment. And for a while, that gap felt permanent. Miles was playing professional golf. Charlie was playing junior golf. Different worlds, different pressure. Different stakes, but that gap is closing faster than anyone expected. Look, 6 months ago, if you asked scouts who had the better chance of making it on tour in 5 years, most of them said Miles without hesitation. Not because he was more talented, because he was further along. He'd already proven he could handle professional competition. He'd already shown he could Monday qualify and make cuts. He'd already done the thing that separates pros from phenoms. Charlie was still the kid with potential and a famous last name. But then something started happening. Charlie stopped playing like a junior golfer trying to protect a reputation. He started playing like someone who realized the clock was ticking, and Miles noticed. Now here's where I need to pause and give you some context, because there's a Tiger memory that explains why this moment matters so much. Back in the late 90s, Tiger wasn't just beating players. He was lapping them, winning by 12 strokes. Making guys feel like they were playing a different sport. And you know what the other players said back then? We can't catch him, the gap's too big. But Earl Woods used to tell Tiger something that stuck with him his entire career. The gap only stays big if you keep working like you're still chasing. Charlie heard that story growing up. Miles is living it right now, because the fear Miles has isn't that Charlie's talented. It's that Charlie's starting to work like Miles works, and Charlie started with more natural ability. All right, now let me tell you about the moment Miles first felt it. It was at a qualifier in Arizona 2 months ago. Miles and Charlie weren't paired together, but they were both in the field. Miles went out early and shot 68. Solid, professional. The kind of score that usually holds up. Charlie teed off 3 hours later and posted 66. On its own, that's just golf. Someone shoots lower, it happens. But it was what happened afterward that stuck with Miles. He was in the parking lot loading his clubs when someone walked by and said, "Nice round today." Miles said thanks. Then the guy added, "Charlie went even lower though, kid something else." And just like that, Miles is 68. A score he would have celebrated 6 months ago felt like it didn't matter. But I'm not going to tell you what Miles did next. Because what happened 2 weeks later is what turned fear into full-blown panic. Miles started watching Charlie's tournament results. Not casually, obsessively. Every time Charlie played, Miles checked the leaderboard. Every time Charlie posted a score, Miles measured it against what he shot that same week. And the pattern he saw scared him. Charlie was getting better, fast, not just in talent. Everyone knew the talent was there. In execution, in course management. In the ability to close rounds without mistakes. The thing Miles had always held over Charlie, professional maturity, was disappearing. And then last week, something happened that made Miles's biggest fear impossible to ignore. They both entered the same event. Different flights, different tee times, but same tournament. And for the first time, the comparison wasn't theoretical. It was head-to-head on the same scorecard. Miles prepared the way he always does. Range work, notes on every hole, visualizing shots, the routine that got him this far. Charlie showed up with Tiger and walked the course like he was preparing for a major championship. And when the scores were posted after round one, Miles saw the number that confirmed what he'd been afraid of for months. Charlie didn't just beat him. Charlie made it look easy. Round one of that tournament, Miles shot 69. A year ago, he would have been thrilled. It's a tough course. Firm greens, narrow fairways, the kind of layout that punishes mistakes and rewards discipline. 69 was a professional score. Charlie shot 65, 4 strokes better. And it wasn't even close in terms of how they got there. Miles grinded. He scrambled for pars. He made a few birdies but gave one back with a bogey on 12. He posted a number that required effort on every single hole. Charlie looked like he was on cruise control. 5 birdies, 1 bogey, fairways and greens. The kind of round that doesn't show up in highlight reels because there's no drama, just execution. And look, this is where Miles's fear became visible to everyone watching. Because after the round, Miles did something he never does. He went straight to the practice range instead of the locker room, not to work on his swing, to think. He stood there hitting balls with no real purpose, just trying to process what was happening. Because here's the truth Miles was starting to face. For 2 years, he'd been able to tell himself that Charlie's hype was just hype. That when it came to professional golf, experience and maturity would win. But Charlie just posted a number that said otherwise, and it wasn't a fluke. It was a statement. Round 2, Miles came out trying to match Charlie's aggression. He went after pins. He took risks off the tee. He played the kind of golf that works when you're confident and backfires when you're pressing. Miles was pressing. Bogey on the second hole after missing the green long. Another bogey on 5 after a pulled tee shot. By the turn, he was 1 over and fighting just to stay under par for the tournament. Charlie played the exact same strategy he played in round 1. Fairways, greens. Makeable birdie putts. He shot 67. Miles finished with 71. And here's the part that turned fear into something darker. After round 2, a reporter asked Miles about competing in the same field as Charlie Woods. Miles smiled, professional, polite. Charlie's a great player. We're all just trying to post good numbers. Then the reporter followed up. Do you feel like you're chasing him now instead of the other way around? Miles paused just for a second, but you could see it. I don't think about it like that. I'm focused on my own game. But his eyes said something different. His eyes said, yes, and I don't know how to stop it, because that's the thing about fear in sports. You can manage it when it's hypothetical, when it's something that might happen down the road. But when it's real, when you're watching it happen in real time and there's nothing you can do to stop it, that's when fear turns into desperation. And desperation makes you do things you normally wouldn't do. Round 3, Miles made a decision. He wasn't going to play his game anymore. He was going to play Charlie's game, conservative off the tee. Irons to the fat of the green, lag putts instead of aggressive lines, and for the first 9 holes it worked. He made 4 pars and a birdie. He was climbing the leaderboard. He was proving he could adapt. Then on the 10th hole, everything fell apart. Not because he made a bad swing, because he realized something that broke him. He looked at the leaderboard and saw Charlie at 8 under for the tournament. Miles was at even par, and he understood in that moment playing Charlie's game wasn't going to work, because Charlie plays that game better. But playing his own game wasn't working either, because his game isn't good enough to keep up. That's the nightmare scenario for any competitor. When both strategies fail and you're out of answers, Miles bogeyed 4 of the last 8 holes and finished the tournament at 3 over. Charlie finished at 10 under and took 2nd place. And Miles's biggest fear, the one he's been trying to outrun since the day Charlie's name started showing up on the same leaderboards, just became reality. He's not the future anymore. He's the guy trying to keep up with it. Miles Russell posted on social media the next day. One sentence, sometimes you learn more from the losses than the wins. Standard athlete talk, positive spin, move forward, but the comments told a different story. Charlie's just different, bro. You'll get there, keep grinding. Maybe focus less on Woods and more on your game. Every single comment, even the supportive ones, mentioned Charlie. That's the reveal. Miles's biggest fear isn't that Charlie is better. It's that he's becoming irrelevant in his own story. Because here's what's actually happening when Miles wins, people say, great round by Russell. When Charlie wins, people say, Tiger's kid is the real deal. When Miles loses, people don't notice. When Charlie loses, it's analyzed like breaking news. And when they're in the same event, Miles becomes a footnote in Charlie's narrative. That's the fear that's eating him alive, not the scores. Not the talent gap. The fact that no matter what he does, the story is always about someone else. And honestly, I don't know how you fight that, because Miles can shoot 65 and it'll get a polite golf clap. Charlie can shoot 65 and it trends on social media. Look. Miles spent 2 years building a reputation as the hardest worker in junior golf. The kid who didn't need a famous last name because his game spoke for itself. And it did, for a while, but now the narrative is shifting. And the new narrative goes like this. Charlie Woods is finally living up to the hype, and Miles Russell is just another talented kid who couldn't break through. That's not fair. Miles is 17 years old and competing at a professional level most players never reach. But fair doesn't matter when you're competing against a story the world wants to believe. 3 days after that tournament, Miles made a change. He switched coaches. Not because his current coach was doing a bad job, because Miles needed something, anything, that felt like progress. Some way to convince himself he's still moving forward while Charlie's moving faster. And you know what the saddest part is? Charlie doesn't even know this is happening. He's not trying to bury Miles. He's not thinking about Miles at all. He's just playing golf and getting better. But every time Charlie improves, it makes Miles feel like he's falling behind. That's the nightmare of competing against someone who isn't even competing with you. Because you can't fight someone who doesn't know you're fighting. Here's what nobody tells you about being the underdog. It only works if you eventually win. If you keep losing, you're not the underdog anymore. You're just the guy who didn't make it. And that's the reality Miles is staring down right now. He did everything right, turned pro early, outworked everyone. Built a game that could compete with professionals. But he's learning the hardest lesson in sports. Sometimes doing everything right still isn't enough when someone else is doing it better. Look, this isn't about talent. Miles has talent. This isn't about work ethic. Miles grinds harder than almost anyone. This is about timing. Miles's window to be the next big thing is closing because Charlie's window just opened. And in golf, there's only room for one generational story at a time. Tiger owned the 2000s. Nobody else got to be the face of golf no matter how good they were. Charlie's about to own the next decade. And Miles is going to be the answer to a trivia question. Who else turned pro as a teenager in 2024? That's the fear. Not that he won't have a career, that his career won't matter. Here's my verdict. Miles Russell's biggest fear is already true. And the tragic part? He did nothing wrong. Sometimes you can do everything right and still lose because someone else's story is bigger than yours. So here's what I want to know. Can Miles ever escape Charlie's shadow, or is he destined to be the other guy no matter how good he gets? Drop your take below.